As I mentioned, quite a while ago, many months ago, I thought this was an interesting old business. I was asking reconsideration of several decisions that were made by you guys, the board, over the last year or so. Regarding the Kennedy House and the second phase of the demolition of the hill behind it. And I somehow it got scheduled as a citizen's comment. For the moment, I wasn't expecting that. I have no idea what that is. And I'm not sure why this is the proper venue for this. So maybe you could tell me why you think it is. I don't know.
So because it went to commitment and was issued as a supplemental tax bill, that's what makes it a Board of Assessors issue.
I understand that piece of the construction. I just don't understand how it got there. We never actually had a serious conversation about my written request for reconsideration that I'm aware of. And that's what I thought. I didn't know if that was going to take place here or not.
Let me address maybe the question that you're seeking. In that normally, the consent calendar, which was where your name was listed, is a one-shot deal. I mean, we vote on the complete package because normally it's, has to do with numerous activities.
Yep.
And I saw that and I thought, well, what else is there that you might be able to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about?
Sure.
So that's why it went to citizen comments.
Okay. That explains why I got there anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. But we didn't really have, as I recall, in that meeting, we didn't really have a conversation for the one part. And then in the event, some other citizens comment cut off the conversation entirely and just ended without, I felt, any kind of.
Well, again, that may have been mine. I only had maybe a 2 or 3 second delay. You were confused.
Yep.
And we moved on.
Yeah, I
So-
get all of that, yeah. So I didn't know how it ended up here exactly.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like we never had the conversation. Certainly, I wanted to have an open and frank conversation about my concerns. I'm happy to be here if this is what you think is the appropriate venue. But I'm not asking for an abatement of fine unless if you all feel that's the appropriate way to do it here today, that's fine. I just think it was an unfair fine. I'm willing to discuss that with you and say why I think that's the case. You have quite a comprehensive written history of the whole thing, which Stan has never said any single detail that I'm aware of it here. I have copious records of both my correspondence, his correspondence, all the text messages we ever sent back and forth, which were numerous, copious, because we communicated very, very well through the whole process. And I do want to say one thing. I guess we're talking about it, so we wasn't part of it. I was talking to Johnny Daigle a couple weeks ago, and he said something sort of interesting to me, not related. Well, he said something interesting. One of the reasons everybody is in the town hall pissed off to make it is that I threatened to sue the town. Well, I just want to clarify, I never threatened to sue anybody. What I said was literally, and it's the last sentence of the letter I wrote to you. If we cannot reach a resolution of this problem, I will be exercising my legal right to seek relief through the Lincoln County Superior Court as provided for by law. And I'm sure you all know that it can only make an appeal of a select board decision to the Superior Court. That's just the law. That's not a suit. That's an appeal. And that's the only legal route there is for me to take. It's a suit law. And I would just ask them, if we ended up in court, I certainly hope we wouldn't, that I would present this argument along with, this much documentation we have going back and forth between all of us. And then the court would say that seems unreasonable or it doesn't. I'm going to sue anybody, just for clarity. I think that the fine was improperly unequally assessed. And I think there might be a good reason for that, because there was a misunderstanding that there were two code hazardous building, I forgot the exact term that Stan issued, events over 3 years, and they're completely two separate actions. That the record seems to be perfectly clear. And the second action came on, I think it was November 3rd, and 6 days later, this board decided to give me a retroactive fine of $5,400. When I just spent the whole fall doing exactly what Stan had asked on his schedule, not my schedule. I told him I'd get it done. In the event, it took another, I think, 42 days after the 3rd, something like that. By December 15th, Stan blessed it, he said, done, everything was according to what he wanted. Is that in writing? He's wrote me a letter to that effect. I just, I'll get it done. And to my great surprise, in March, I think of the following year, I happened to be out of town. I couldn't come to the meeting because we were doing legal consultations with my daughter's attorneys in the State Department about the kidnapping of my grandson. I was never even notified. Sam, as a courtesy, called me on the cell phone and said, did you know that they're meeting to talk about this? No, I've never received a notification from this town on the board that I was going to have some kind of business discussed. All of this, not even a courtesy. And I understand the case. It is the case that other people do get those claims. I don't know why. Maybe I just didn't get it. I don't know. But that's not equal treatment. It seems to me, as I laid out in the paper. Simultaneously, there was this case of transfer. You guys know this. I thought much more egregious than anything I had done. It went on for much longer, 14 months or something. I was literally something like 42 days beyond what I think was an inappropriate, but nonetheless, enforcement order saying, please finish this job in the fall, November 3rd. The thing from Stan. And then he told me, you did it. There's just a disparity in fairness of treatment here. And then out of nowhere, next spring, many months later, get this fine assessed. Stan said the job was done. My neighbors complains a lot. I understand that. She actually owed me money. I think that's part of the reason he was complaining, but I don't know. All I'm asking for is fairness and equal treatment according to the rules and the regulations of how you guys operate and how the code enforcement system operates and Maine law operates. Nothing more than that.
Well, I think they've been very fair. So, and you compare yourself to other situations, but each situation's different. You know, the Grindle, that was a junkyard basically, and that's a lot different than a dangerous building. So
Different, yes. But the handling wasn't. I'm talking about the handling of a particular code violation. And there wasn't any dangerous building for the majority of the time we're talking about because it had already been removed. There was just some rubbish there.
Just for clarification,
Yes.
Seth, you keep saying 42 days. This started in October 9th of 2018.
No, it didn't.
So what you're saying is Seth, all of the correspondence to you from our code enforcement officer is a lie.
No,
Because it's right
no.
here. He sent you a letter, October 9th, 2018.
Yes.
It says right here, the timeline. You're saying 42 days. This started in 2018 and you didn't clean it up until 2022.
So I think that's the misunderstanding. With all due respect.
Why is it? It says it right here. He sent the correspondence. The L needs to be removed.
That's not what he said, and it's not what we agreed to. We agreed to take off at Sam's request. The standard is the first third, the roof had collapsed. That was the 2018 action. And we did. We cleaned it up, we tore it down, we sealed the back of the building so no animals or people or kids or anything get in. We cleaned the whole site. Quite a bit later, almost 2 years later, another snowstorm brought the remaining sag, the remaining roof of the building, and not Stan. I called Stan and said, we plan to take this down in the summer. Is that okay with you? And Stan said, yes. And I'm sure if Stan was here, he'd agree that that's exactly the conversation that happened. There was never a connection between those two enforcement actions. They're two separate enforcement actions. That's actually something like double jeopardy. I don't know what the right legal term is, but they're separate. And I understand why it might not be clear. But, you know, Stan's your best guide to the timeline. I don't, that's why I want to do this whole business, because Stan would have been here. And I don't want to grill Stan or anything, but he's never disagreed with anything I've said about these two independent series of events.
Well, I think actually at the March 10th meeting in 2022, he did sort of disagree with your timeline. That's his recollection of it.
Well, it's too bad he's here. We can discuss it. That's what I was hoping we would do as a whole business.
I mean, you're kind of, so just, I think there's two issues. As far as the fine goes for the abatement, that's really what Board of Assessors deals with.
Yes.
So I guess you have to get to the, and I appreciate what you're saying. I do have 2 points of clarification. I did not like I don't think John Daigle speaks for the town.
Yeah.
I don't think he speaks for Stan. I don't
Sure.
speak, he speaks for the town. I think you said town office. And I do want to clarify that also at that May 10th, 2022 meeting, once this fine was levied. And we have it, I mean, it's available on YouTube. You did say that you would see us in court.
Yeah, that's what I just read to you, exactly what I meant.
Well,
Exactly. I didn't
what
say
you
this-
said, that's not what you said that night, but what you said was you would see us in court and then you walked out.
Yes, that's exactly how I recall it. No different than that. I never threatened to sue anybody or anything else. I said, I will appeal this. That's where you do that. You do that in the Superior Court. That's the only place you can appeal a select court decision. Unless you know something that I don't know.
But I think what the current Board of Assessors has to decide is whether you want to abate the fine or not. Because
Well, we have no request for an abatement. We have a request to hear one side of the story. That's all we have. I haven't seen a request in writing from you, Seth,
No,
or an amount to be abated.
I didn't.
So I'm not sure why we're sitting.
I'm not, that's the first thing I said tonight. I'm not sure why we're sitting here. I agree with you entirely. If, as a matter of expeditiousness, you'd like me to request an abatement and you would seriously consider it, I'll agree to that. But that doesn't mean I'll set aside my appeal that I made at that meeting. And I think I followed it up in writing to the initial judgment that led to the, whatever you call it, the supplemental.
But I don't think you,
tax levy.
I think that time for appeal passed,
I appealed it.
but I don't think you did it within the appropriate, according to Stan, within the appropriate amount of time to appeal the decision.
I probably did it in writing and I can probably find a copy of it.
Well, that, I'm just saying, that didn't come to us within the 30 days that you have to appeal a decision, which was that May 10th, 2022 date, when the fine was levied.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
So that to me is a lack of timeliness. So then when your request came, was it for a discussion? So then kind of the time elapsed for the discussion, then it gets committed. So we're kind of in one of those bureaucratic.
I hear you.
So this really kind of was the appropriate venue for that. But I think you guys have to make a decision of, do you want to, how do you want to proceed? And do you want to consider an abatement? That's sort of where we're at with that, I would think.
I guess I'm on the fence if I might just add one more sentence or two. I attempted hard to do the right thing throughout both of these dangerous building citations. And I think Stan would agree with that. I think they were two separate things. I think he has blessed the completion of each of them. I don't even know why there was a meeting, for example, in May of 2022. Because Sam had written me a letter saying, you're done. You have complied entirely. his December 15th letter, which I'm sure you guys have. I never heard a thing about it. Nobody ever said anything, certainly not Stan, certainly not you guys. And suddenly out of the blue, without being notified, I hear it's being discussed again, and you precipitously, as I understand it, decided to fine me this enormous fine. When I had been in completion with the CEO's request and order in December prior. I just don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense. No third code violation was ever issued or discussed with me. I don't think one was ever written. I don't even know how that process worked.
We weren't in compliance because
Right.
we wouldn't have levied fines if you weren't in compliance.
But Stan had wrote me a letter in December 15th. His letters dated December 28th. I don't have a copy of it, but I'm sure you do in your file.
So I think,
Saying you are in compliance, and I never heard anything after that. Never.
so I think we went through this, I think the select board went through that at the May 10th, 2022 meeting with Seth and Stan and all of you, which is when the fine was levied.
Yes.
But maybe, but you haven't. I don't think you've addressed my question, any of you, or Stan was not here. That in fact, I was never notified of anything after December 28th letter, which I acknowledge receiving. I talked to Stan after that numerous times, but other unrelated stuff, we talk a lot because I have some different properties. It came as a complete shot out of the dark to me. I just don't understand it. I don't understand how your understanding that something should happen occurred. I just don't. I think legally, Stan and I were done, which means the town and I were done. According to the letter on the 28th of December 2022. There has never been, that I'm aware of, further correspondence.
But on December 14th, you got a miscellaneous nuisance notice for debris left behind. February 7th, you were notified of fines in the amount of $5,400. So, and then on May 10th of 2022 is when they had the select board meeting and you came in, Stan, and you each presented your, I guess you could call it, for lack of a better term, a case. And I think that's how we got to the point with the fine. And then that's when they have to, didn't you have?
We did have to.
You have to fine. So the 50,
I remember that.
the 5,400 was then halved.
Mhm.
And then that's when you left the meeting. And then the fine was levied with the,
Right, that was the last meeting we ever had about
with,
it.
that was
Right.
that,
Never
then
had
the
another
fine was
meeting
levied
after.
with the tax commitment and the supplemental, supplemental tax bill was issued.
I think there had to be one more step because you raised the fine back up to 5,400.
That could have been at that same meeting.
You didn't accept.
You didn't.
You didn't accept
the
it.
fine
I don't think you did.
that we.
I thought it was a
we left.
separate meeting you did that.
No,
I mean,
no, it was all that meeting. You rejected it.
And Will suggested it.
Yep.
And
Yes,
Will-
I remember.
Yeah.
Walked out.
And you rejected it and left.
I said, no, that's correct.
Yeah, you rejected it. That's when you
Is that
said,
for you?
well, I'll see you in court, and you left.
Yes, I agree with all of that. Yeah.
And the only other thing I'd like to say is actions taken by Stan and the employees of the town of Waldeboro are not done ever in a pissed off manner. And I think Stan goes out of his way. The code enforcement officer
Absolutely.
goes out of his way, as do all the employees, to treat everybody fairly. And it's not that you make somebody mad and this happens. That's not how we operate. It's never been how we operate. However, we do react to complaints. You know, we have always been a very reactive community, and that predates me, to complaints.
Yes.
And that's what started this. So
Been able to complain a lot, yes.
it, you know, it was, but it just wasn't neighbors. And like Stan said that night, So I just want everybody to realize that it's not that somebody gets unhappy. We are reacting to complaints that we receive in the town office.
I think there was plenty of notification. I'm looking at, I have Stan's timeline right here. And there were lots of notifications starting October 9th, 2018, ending in May 10th, 2022. Numerous notices.
Yes.
Assessment of violation, failure to remove the L by $100 a day assessed.
I
And
think,
it goes on.
I think maybe where the confusion lies is Seth keeps noting a December 28th letter.
Yes.
And there's a December 14th of a miscellaneous nuisance for debris left behind. So I think that might be where he is thinking, I'm done, but Stan sent the debris, which is where that finds. From my understanding, from what I can glean from this.
That's news to me, because Stan on the 15th, I think I have a text message in fact, because I just before he CC'd me the letter and he said it's a difficult. He said he was at the site, looked at the site, we talked about it for 15 minutes, and he said, is it adequate? You've done what you needed to do. Done what I asked you to do.
But not at the time. The time frame was October 15th was when that could be done. And you were fined 100, and he let you know when you finally finished it.
So I agree, it wasn't until the 15th that was done. That's absolutely true. And I would argue that
2021,
2020.
2019,
2000
initially.
I can't. Yes.
Mhm.
I think that's where the fairness and equity disparity seems to raise its head. If I was, the citation date, if I recall, was November 3rd, by December 15th.
What year are we in? We've got 4 years
Same
of
year,
time.
same year.
Which year?
So this was.
Started the 18th.
21, it must have been.
Mhm.
Oh, 21.
Okay, so that's 3 years later.
Those are two entirely separate actions, and Stan told you that. There were.
I
two
understand
separate
that.
acts. They're not
It's-
related in any way, so you can't talk about.
You have fines for both. You have failure to remove the L by October 15th, 2019, fine of $100 per day.
I
That's
think,
one.
I think I was threatened with a fine, yes, back in 18,
I don't.
but it
think
was
it's-
never applied. You guys never voted to apply the fine. I just assumed that common sense prevailed and then it evaporated, much like it has done with other people who complied. I never received a note that there was a fine from that initial citation, and Sam, I'm sure will tell you that.
That's, well, I'm sorry. I was just reading Stan's notes
Okay.
that he,
So it would be
And
very
that's-
useful to have Stan here. Yeah.
we have his information right there.
I see, it's very useful to have people in the room. Because we are interpreting written record quite differently, it sounds like. I just want to solve the problem. I acted in good faith. I was asked twice to take the first 1/3 down, then the second 2/3, I did. It seems like I'm being finished or something for some reason. I have complied with the letter of Stan's requests and the town's request.
Not the dates, I believe.
I just, so. You may read the documentation one way. I think it's incorrect. I've told you right along that I feel there are two separate issues here. Stan has agreed with them in this room.
Yeah,
And the only way I can appeal to your common sense in the written record. And if that's not persuasive enough, that's your decision to make. I'm not second guessing your opinions or your decisions. I think it's incorrect. I've made that very clear on many occasions. And if you decide that you think you're correct, there is a path of appeal. It's called the Superior Court of Lincoln County.
I'm just using Stan's stuff. So if you're disagreeing with Stan, you could take that up with him. I'm just looking at his information.
And
Yep.
tell the judge stuff, that's okay. I would say all of our time.
Mhm.
The problem was solved long ago. Why are you debating about it? I just don't understand. I'm trying to be cooperative. I was trying to be cooperative when I had to, when I did what Stan asked me to do. And in spite of that, you fined me $5,400. Nobody else has been fined $5,400. I don't know why that is. But the record shows I'm the only one that can find. Why? I'm just asking you to be common sensical.
Well,
Maybe it was a mistake. I don't know. I don't know.
I think they tried to half the fine.
We did.
You did.
And just so everybody's aware, you're not the only person who's been fined. We're in Superior Court right now with another person. So I think those characterizations are inaccurate. But I think you guys have to make a decision as the Board of Assessors. And you also are select board, how you want to proceed from here.
Well, I said from the beginning, as an assessor, I would like to see a request for an abatement, just like everybody else. And we don't want to treat you any differently, Seth. So I would expect to see a request for abatement from you on the form that we provide
Okay.
and go
I
from
didn't even
there.
know that was a possibility. So nobody, I didn't know that.
And it's not a. And that, some of that, the lack of a form is because it's really not, it's not a tax abatement.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
that's
I
why I
get it.
didn't think of that.
Yes.
It's, but because it's a commitment and we actually had to ask the MMA of, this has been committed, the window for appeal has passed. So that's why it's not really an appeal. But how do you get before the board to be heard was the goal. And the goal was get before the board. And then the Board of Assessors, even though it's also, they serve the select board. But that vehicle, that paperwork didn't really fit what you were trying to accomplish, and that this was because that fine had been committed on the tax commitment and this supplemental tax went out. That's why it would be here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm willing to do that. But by doing that, I would not give up my right to appeal the initial fine through the Superior Court.
We always have that.
You always have
I-
that.
I-
We're not disputing that.
Okay.
We're not. No,
it's
just-
If we could,
If you could do it over, if you could go back to May 10th, 2022,
yes,
and realize that, you know what? For whatever reason, I could have done better. I should have taken care of this. This started in 2018. There's been complaints.
I'm listening.
And say, when they made the offer of half the fine. Would you even consider that again?
No, I wouldn't, because I think the substance of, that is the basis of the fine was incorrect. I think I've documented that very well. And with all due respect, if you guys don't want to reconsider that, that's your right. You're the citizen.
With all due respect, we're taking advice from our code enforcement officer that did the paperwork.
Okay,
So we're levying his request. What do you,
sure, okay.
that's,
I think
we didn't assess the fine, he did.
No,
We just backed him up.
I think.
100%.
Unfortunately, he isn't being heard.
But we went through this for over an hour before and Stan was here.
So,
And then we tried, of course, we don't want to find people, but, and if people come into compliance. Quickly, we try not to, but this is like 3 years,
it isn't 3 years,
but it is according to what I have, so.
but that's incorrect.
And then we were still,
Okay. So
I think it was generous to have the fine
Very generous.
and it was rejected.
if I can't convince you the record's incorrect, there's no point in talking further about that piece. I think we're probably in agreement there. I'd be happy to have you consider a request for 100% abatement. You don't have to do it, of course. It would finish and end the problem, and we could move on to other more interesting, productive things. That's up to you guys. That's not up to me.
If
And
you,
if you think that's the proper venue, I will. You have whatever you ask me. You want me to submit a written or a verbal? I'll do it right now. I request an abatement of this $5,400 fine.
if you would like. What you're asking for, Bob, is like an application paperwork. I can maybe find. What other places have utilized in this instance, if there is this instance.
And if there isn't a form, you can write a letter, just say,
I'd be happy to do that. I just want this problem to go away for all of us.
well, it's not a problem for me, Seth, quite frankly. I mean, it's involving of our time, but it really isn't my problem.
Okay.
So I want to make that very clear from my standpoint.
Sure.
This is not my problem.
Okay.
This is something that's happened between you and an official of the town. And yes, of course, we're going to stand behind the official. He knows what he's doing. He
Absolutely.
does his job conscientiously.
Yeah.
And I've never known Stan to make a mistake or an error in judgment or timelines or anything
know.
else. So,
Actually, I deal with them a lot.
well,
I
then
agree with you.
you have a right to take that up.
Yes, yes. The alternatives, we can just put it to bed, and that's a group decision. That's my request. I will wait for Julie to give me the appropriate form, whatever you think it might be.
So Daryl and I will put our heads together and try to come up with something like that. And then Daryl will let you know give you the paperwork.
You're talking to me, let me do.
Oh, yeah,
You're looking at-
no, I'm actually looking
Oh, you're
at,
thinking
I'm
out
looking
loud.
at the ship over there because I'm thinking for a moment.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think how long that will take, because I don't want to say, oh, we can do this at the next meeting
Yeah.
and have it drag on.
I'm not going to.
But. Well, because it's a commitment issue too, we have to have it resolved by July.
Okay,
So,
I'm sure we can do that.
let us have some time with that, and then Daryl will let you know. What paperwork there has to be, and I mean, if that's the way the Board of Assessors wants to do it, it's because really what you're considering is abating the fine. There's no other way for
I'm
you.
considering a request that's put in writing in front of us. That's all I'm considering.
You as the Board of Assessors can decide on the abatement of the fine. But you can't, I think your time has passed. I think the time has passed to hear an appeal on the fine. So this is your last bite at the apple.
Whatever you send me, or Daryl sends me, I'm happy to review and comply with and submit it to you for your consideration. Of course, I'm happy to do that.
Well, I think that's where we stand then.
Okay, so I'll wait for some kind of correspondence from Daryl or you or somebody.
Yeah, well, he's the assessor's agent. Technically, it'll come from him.
Okay.
But like I said, just to get to this point and finding the proper vehicle took a couple of.
Well, I appreciate your forbearance and your willingness to have a conversation. I do. I just want to solve the problem and move forward for all of us. Really. I do. Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
I think Will forgot he's the chair.
Well, we do have the co-chair and then move the meeting along,
Yeah, I think it'll be right back.
Jan Lindsay.
I'm not co-chair, but.
Bob is, that's right.
I'm happy to move the meeting along.
Happy, you move the meeting along then.
Does anybody have an objection to listening to those folks who are here first? So they can go home and don't have to sit through the entire procedure.
Nope,
that
that's
they
fine.
have to do.
Can we invite them to come sit up at
Yeah.
the table? Who's the first one?
I think Ann Kennedy was here first.
Ann Kennedy was here
Ann.
first.
I don't know. Got any guests with you?
Wow, pick a chair, any chair. Yes, I'm Ann Kennedy, and I don't quite know how this process works, except when I saw my tax bill, I fell on the floor and called Daryl, who came and looked at my property, and then I got a piece of paper that says that I am apparently requesting a $490 abatement. And just when tax bills come out, people call people, and my neighbors across the street said, oh my God, my tax bill went up $400. And two other people said, oh my God, my taxes went up 200. And I said, mine went up over 1,000. And we have a big old house on Main Street that we're struggling to keep looking beautiful. It's nothing special. And I thought that I know things have gone crazy the last couple of years with COVID. And it just, not knowing how the situation works. My eldest child's been looking for a place to live and was looking at dumps for 150,000 with, you'd have to have 10 dumpsters to get rid of the trash, insulation falling out of the ceiling. So to me, it just, because the whole world has gone crazy, it just seemed to me like if everybody got 10% increase across the board, the whole town, my tax would have gone up $300 and something instead of over 1,000. So I paid $3,012 last year, and this year $4,340, which again, it's I don't know why some people get a $200 increase, some get a $400, and mine was over 1,000. So Daryl came out and looked, and so I guess on your behalf, my behalf, you are saying 490 less.
So after reviewing, the house 1060 next door sold on March 7th of 2022 for 292. I had them assessed at 297, but had Ann assessed at the 335. Well, the difference in the two is I had the one next door as fair and this one is average. So that one got more depreciation off. And I would recommend that we do reduce it by 35,000. It brings it back down in range of the 490, and that's where it came from. So that's where my recommendation came from.
I was just sitting in for a minute. Go ahead.
Mainly, it's all based on what you have. You have a big old house. Everybody has a different structure. We went back and repriced what it would cost to build the house, to build the barn, to build everything. If you have a double wide, it's a different price. If you have a single wide, it's a complete schedule, goes into the system. So it's not a factor. Everybody goes up 50%. It was built into the system, trying to figure out why some houses sell more, some sell less.
But in looking like the Twicklers live across the street from me in a lovely home with bigger lot. To me, it's a nicer house than ours. And they said our taxes went up $400. So I don't know what justified my old house across the street being valued so much more than, with the jump. Again, everything went crazy. So why didn't everybody else's house go crazy like mine did?
Some of them went a lot more crazier than yours. It would depending how they were assessed before and how they are now. If that one sold a few times, it's probably got a higher quality.
Again, I don't know that.
Yeah.
All I knew was I fell on the floor when I saw over $1,000 increase.
Understood.
And, like I said, we're semi-retired and trying to keep it looking good and keep, and it's a struggle keeping a beast up. So that makes a lot of difference. And again, I hadn't heard a number until I got the letter, which was fine. And so I assumed it wouldn't be a bad idea to show up because I didn't know whether they went through if I showed up or not, but I thought, well, let's go see how this works.
But your recommendation is to reduce it $490.
Yes,
That's the abatement. Come on.
yes.
Or more if you feel like it.
I'm trying.
The whole house needs paint.
But
Just-
it is a very lovely home. It is.
Just for the record, I had 3 properties go up over $1,500 each. A little bit more, actually. I think one went up $1,800. Thank you, Daryl.
Yeah, I'm in trouble with them.
Yeah. So I know, I feel your pain. I honestly do. And I've got it listed for 100,000 less than what he's gonna value at. So. Or 75, sorry, 75,000, less than he valued it at,
And he can't sell it.
and I can't sell
I still put that in there.
it. Yeah.
On the other hand, just down the road from us, the piece went for, it was appraised at, I'm just gonna pull a number out of the air. 250, and it went for $310,000.
I know, it's,
I mean, it's a ridiculous market.
yeah, it is. And that's why I thought, well, gee, wouldn't it make your life easy to just say, okay, everybody, 10% more this year, let's get this,
But that's not how the law
Yeah, I
works.
know.
It's his.
We're on
Just
number
discussing that.
a
51.
lot less paperwork.
Yeah, I got that.
Do you vote individually?
Yeah.
Should we go ahead and
I'll make that motion. We reduce it by $490.
I'll second.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Thank you very much. I
Nice to
appreciate
see
it greatly.
That'll go on your account and we'll send you a notice.
So it'll just be minus the second
Yes.
half.
Yep,
Right?
yep.
Second half amount.
You got
Take
it.
it off. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming
Good
in.
night, Ann. Have a good night.
I'll stay for another minute. Just because.
Sorry, while you were out, I just said we'd deal with folks who were here.
No, that's good. Thank
Do
you.
you know who's here next? or-
I don't know.
Heart attack.
I think the man. No, the man. Was I think he was-
What's
They
your name,
they
sir?
came in behind me.
Adam Saunders.
So he's number 50 on your list there. You're welcome to say what you wish, or we'll let them know what's going on.
I'll let you have.
All right.
To this is my first meeting, so.
Adam lives at 787 Back Cove Road is where he's at. His value was 87. It went to 144, up $450. He did have Scott Lash give him a comparable market analysis. Scott came up with 3 homes, one in Friendship, one in Washington, and the one at 2266 Winslow's Mills, which go back a few years at Collimore. I don't know. Do you remember that was that house there?
Oh, yeah, that's
What?
Evie's.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And go back in history.
Yeah.
That home was purchased for 135 and they got it back on the market now for 190, I think is what the asking is on that. Went down, the deck on the back of Adam's house has been gone for some time. And certainly can take that off, which is the $3,042. Other than that, it is valued as fair condition and a C-grade home, which is where most of our houses are out there. Welcome to say anything.
Yeah, thank you for the, that, yeah, it went up. My deck's been off for a couple of years. I didn't realize that was a big part. I didn't realize it was included in the taxes, or I'd have probably mentioned it about 3 years ago when I approved it. But that's not the big problem. It's just that with the taxes going up and my house needs a lot of work. Fair condition, I think, is giving it a little bit more than what it is. I mean, my floors are sagging, my siding all needs to be completely redone, trim. It's just a really old farmhouse that was, my mother did what she could to take care of it. And now it's at the point where it needs a whole lot more all over again. I bought it off of her a handful of years ago for much cheaper than what it is appraised for. And even her highest offer she had was nowhere near as what even the market value is on it. Granted, this was 7 years ago, I believe I purchased it off her. I just don't see how it's even valued that high with the amount of work that it needs. For the amount of work that it needs, I could just about tear it down and build a new house that would actually be new and true. And going off from what the appraisal was on it that Scott Lash had done for me. It seems like it puts me back to at least what I was paying on taxes previous to the jump. And that's, I don't know if that would be per se including a removal of the deck or not. I'm fine with where I was at before. Seemed reasonable, but the jump was just seemed crazy. I know sometimes things, like you had mentioned, it's about the different sizes of the houses and this and that. My neighborhood has blown up with a bunch of really nice houses down on the Ice Pond Road, which I'm sure has changed certain things around the neighborhood, and my house just does not compare, and it feels like I'm in a tax bracket of, in a percentage that my house doesn't technically fall in, basically. And I'm just looking for an abatement to get me back to a fair tax rate.
If you were to classify the home as a level less than what you have classified it as, what would you classify it as?
I mean, you can drop it a grade, you can say it's in poor condition.
I see,
versus
have you got
fair.
fair? Is that what you said, fair?
We have it as C fair.
See
which is-
fair?
which is-
So if it were D,
Then it would drop. I can go back and you table and we can figure that out at the next meeting if you'd like.
given the description the gentleman's provided us tonight, I think it may be worth doing that, but I
Daryl, you're more than welcome if you'd like to come down when I'm home. I can
And go
make it
through.
right to actually walk through and see the inside of the house. I mean, the outside, you can tell that it definitely needs work, but walking through the inside, you'll definitely
Get a
see
different
it.
feel.
Yes, yes, very much so.
And we've
And I've
had
been-
multiple houses that we've had that happen. I mean,
Yeah.
one, he thought it was
And
a
I-
full basement. It wasn't. It
Yeah,
was just a,
mine's part of my basements, you gotta duck through the half of it and the other part's a crawl space with the floor sagging. I'm trying to do as much work to it as I can and save the house and make it nice again, but that's a long ways away and probably a few $100,000 that
Mhm.
just ain't happening.
guess I'll make a recommendation. We table this until the next assessors meeting.
All in favor? We can do it further.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
And your name?
Kelsey Kalbacher and Owen Marcus. Brigida. We're 42159.
59.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Second
they
from-
bought the Canavan
Oh, up on,
Freeman.
oh, real quick.
Yeah, 32 Bremen Road.
Okay, yep.
Which one is it, Daryl?
It's the one that sits right on the road,
Yeah.
the big one,
Yeah, but I mean, what number is it?
59.
59. So I had it with an apartment over the garage. There's nothing up there but bare studs.
Oh.
There's no, it's kind of a interesting property in that on the back of the garage, there's a nice fireplace and it's just a porch. And that's what you got. So that does make a difference of $882, which is the recommendation to remove the apartment. It's not there.
I'll make that motion.
seconded. Are you comfortable with that?
Oh, well, I just, kind of wanted to ask, because we purchased the house, and that's what I said it was assessed at was 375,000 this past year, which was obviously at the height of the craziness. And it's because the house, like, majority of the houses here have a lot of quirks and home repairs and, not anything is level from when we purchased it, then the tax increase happened 6 months later and it was 60% more. So we just kind of wanted to come here and see, again, 60% more in value seemed a lot to us and was surprising. And Daryl was very kind. I met with you twice in your office and then you came to our property. So I just wanted to be aware of kind of what was the reason, again, we sold at the we did purchase at the height of what we hope is the craziness, and to understand when do you reevaluate this, and also the mill rate, like right now you adjusted the mill rate, so basically we're paying, I'm sure you all did the math, right? We're all kind of paying the same, but being new to the area, I'm not sure every year how dramatic does the mill rate change, and just to prepare ourselves for what's to come, because as I'm sure everyone, you have your budget and then you get a surprise like this and you're like, okay, we can talk about it.
So
There's a couple factors. If they're gonna knock off that there's no apartment there, that's a kind of a no-brainer. And then you got the homestead that'll kick in. That'll may take another 25,000. But the tax rate will change going forward, and depending on the budgets and all the other end of it.
just what you said, you get your budget and then it's wow, we do the same thing as a town. We get the budget and then it's ambulances went up, ridiculous amount. We were paying $220 for ambulances. And now we're up to $300,000. So we're going to be putting on the warrant tonight, the budget, and that's another 13% increase
Mhm.
of our budget. And then they have to do the overlay and
And we're not
We
even
do
talking
commitment.
about the school or the county.
and we're not talking about the school or the county. So
I think the biggest thing too is we haven't assessed in 13 years, reassessed. And that's what really hit us,
Okay.
as we hadn't reassessed any properties for 13 years.
our mill
And
rate
that's-
was stable.
We
for
talked
a-
about it 3 years ago and we said, let's wait. It
Right.
just never slowed down.
And our mill rate was
Yeah,
stable
That was the biggest.
over the
shocker.
last, we've worked really hard to keep the mill rate stable. In unstable times, it's hard to keep your mill rate stable when you're just dealing with so much. But we take it very seriously. I'm the town manager. I'm Julie, by the way,
Hi,
and
nice
I'm
to
not
meet you, Julie.
really part of this, but
Okay.
we made eye contact. And as a lover of old homes, and I know what you're talking about. But it is something that everybody takes seriously and we're very aware of it, but and it's the hardest thing for me to say in my 35 years doing this is we really don't know what the future holds. We're
Yes.
doing the same thing you are in homes and businesses. We just don't know what we're facing. But we do try to keep it in normal years. I would say we try to keep it stable. When you say that, guys, we really do try,
Okay.
but we don't know what the next couple of years is going to look like.
Okay.
And we don't know what I keep asking Daryl, so are we readjusting here? Are the sales going down? And he keeps giving me bad news.
We're good for 2 years as far as the state's always 2 years behind, but the sales for this last year, which will be June of 22, July of 22 to June of 23. I'm coming in at 81% again. We haven't done the land, we did just the buildings.
I mean, your valuation is coming in at 81%.
Yeah, the
So that
sale,
means
sale to
We're
assessment.
below the target.
That's on the end of the agendas.
Yeah, so
Review
like,
sales.
so like the sales are just, so we don't know when we'd have to make another like reval, like we hadn't done a reval in 13 years, but then now we're still cattywampus to the market.
So you can't really say if it's gonna be next year, you do a reval.
Because you don't know what's going to happen
Okay.
with sales next year.
Yeah, okay, and then the abatement, if you guys do a reevaluation, or for some reason, when we kind of process this again, look at our house, is this set in final, or can I come again and say, you know what, I had an assessor look, and Daryl, can you come back? Kind of understanding that. process?
Each year is a new process, so you can apply each year. And if you're not satisfied at this level with like the 882, there's another level. You can go over to Wiscasset County Commissioners, and they'll review. I have to take data and you show what you've got, and then
Okay.
they make the decision. That's the process.
And so
So each year is a new year.
okay, and say we do go there, then do we have to go with an assessor, or do you come? How does that kind of do?
If I don't show up, they find in your favor. If you don't
Okay.
show up, they find, but no, it's just like this board,
Yeah,
only at another level.
but I was just talking like evidence wise to collect kind of what,
Obviously, the more you have, the more,
okay,
if you could get an appraisal or have sales that have sold. That's what we're supposed to base it on, is what has sold and what they've sold for.
So again, the fact that our house sold basically 6 months earlier at 375 didn't really
You-
play
you're-
into it
Your
because,
one sale, it looks like you got a real good deal, really, to look at other houses. They're asking, they're asking $575 across the street and they got a buyer.
Okay,
So
yeah,
I mean, it's,
Okay.
it's pretty scary.
yeah. You just gotta ask these questions and show up, right?
Yes,
Hope for the
yes.
best.
You
Okay.
probably go have it assessed and it's higher than what Daryl assesses it, then you're gonna go. You're gonna, yeah. We'll never hear from you again.
Don't be afraid to ask a question.
thank
We
you.
really are. I mean, you're new to town, come in, knock on the door, we talk to everybody, come in,
Thank you.
see me, bring the kids, it's fine.
Okay, yeah, she loves having these experiences as well.
Oh, I'm sure
Okay,
she
well,
does.
thank you then, I guess, yeah, and that was the thing, so this is when I back calculated back, that's gonna be the 63,000 is off of the value of the house because we don't have the apartment.
They need to
So-
vote, but as soon as they vote, we'll know.
But-
They're-
But.
And there is a
when they
motion
vote-
on the floor.
But,
Is there on this?
Yes, I made it.
And Bob said,
We have a motion on. the floor. There's been a second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
okay,
so yes, you
Yeah.
can back, I'll send you a new update,
Okay.
but that'll be.
well,
taken
thank you
off.
very much for your
Thank you.
time and
Thank you.
explaining a little bit to us, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
I think
you.
you can table your meeting for your next meeting.
Thank you for all the hard work.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you. Leah.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
We're gonna make a motion to adjourn. Is that what?
Second.
Not adjourning.
No, well, so what,
We can.
well, I mean, for the assessors.
Well, you're not adjourning,
No.
you get it back at the end, but.
Okay,
Taking a break.
so I guess
I'm
What's it
looking, we're
called?
going for recess.
I'll